What is going on, YouTube? I am Lamont at large. Today I am at the Evergreen Cemetery here in Bloomington, Illinois. I'm here to show you the Hendricks family grave. Let's go back to November 4th, 1983. We have a married couple, 29-year-old David Hendricks, his 30-year-old wife, Susan Hendricks. They have 3 children. 9-year-old Rebecca, 7-year-old Grace, and 5-year-old Benjamin. David was a wildly successful businessman. He had invented a back brace called the cash back brace, making him a multi-millionaire at only 29 years of age. On the outside looking in, a very happy couple, an all-American family. Well, maybe not all-American family, maybe a little bit odd. They were a Protestant family, but they practiced a form of Protestantism called the Plymouth Brethren Protestant sect, if you will. It's their interpretation of the Bible. They're pretty strict. Their neighbors said they were a nice family, but they kept to themselves. They really only associated with people from their church. On that night, November 4th, 1983, Susan had a doctor's appointment that she had went to. Later on, going to her sister's baby shower down in Delvin, which is about 40 minutes away from town. David took the kids, Rebecca, Grace, and Benjamin, to Chuck E. Cheese. They stayed there eating pizza, playing video games to around 8:15 or so, 8:30. Took them home, placed them in bed. They had a very strict bedtime, 9:30, lights out. His wife gets home from the baby shower. They sat around, they talked. And David left that night on a business trip up to Wisconsin. He was going to drive all night, head to Madison, and he was going to stop by orthopedic stores, doctor's offices, so forth and so on, to introduce his back brace, so forth and so on. So David hasn't heard from his family. When he calls them when he gets to Wisconsin, getting a little bit worried. They haven't answered the phone all weekend. He gets one of his assistants to go to the house to knock on the door because Susan hasn't been answering. He gets really, really nervous. He has the assistant contact the neighbor. They go, they're knocking on the door, nobody's answering. Susan and the children were supposed to go to a family function that weekend, and they never arrived. Finally, he calls the police on November 7th and says, hey, listen, I think my wife has been involved in a car accident or something. She's not answering the phone. Nobody is answering the door. Can you please send a couple of officers over to check on them to make sure that they're doing okay? The officers arrive, they check the doors. They go to the back, they check the back door, and it's unlocked. It's closed, but it's unlocked. They go inside the house, downstairs. Looks like somebody was searching for something. Not a total and complete mess, but unkept, if you will. They go upstairs, and to their absolute horror, they see Susan, Rebecca, Grace, and Benjamin dead. Blood absolutely everywhere. On the walls, on the bed, just everywhere. Just blood splatter. Just hardened police officers have never seen a crime scene like that. They called back. They said, we have a crime scene here. We have 4 people murdered. Homicide detectives from Bloomington Police Department arrive, and they're looking around. They notice on a bed where Grace and Benjamin were, they seen a butcher knife and an axe. Clean. No blood on the weapons at all. They put their gloves on. They take the weapons, put it in the bag, send it to the crime lab to have it dusted for fingerprints. Nothing. No fingerprints. Nothing at all. Now the homicide detectives are burdened with the task of letting David know that his family has been found murdered. They get a hold of David. They said, "We got a crime scene. Your family has been murdered." David immediately rushes back to Bloomington, goes down to the scene, is taken to the police department and interviewed. And he says, according to one of the detectives, "Well, at least they're with the Lord now." Kind of an odd way of expressing sadness and shock. Usually, if you found that your family's been murdered or a close one has been murdered, usually it's what happened, how were they killed, who did this, do you have anybody in custody, so forth and so on. All he said was, "Well, at least they're with the Lord now." Kind of odd, don't you think? After they're done interviewing David, he goes home, and the detectives are looking at each other and they're saying, "That's a very odd way to express sadness, being told that your family's just been murdered, and your response is similar to a response that would be given if you found out that a pair of your shoes that you left on the porch had been stolen by somebody." Something is not sitting right with the detectives, so they start digging into his background. They start digging into their marriage. They start interviewing neighbors, close friends, family members, members of their church. And you get the average, yeah, they were a happy couple, so it seemed. Did they fight? What couple doesn't fight? They're a young couple, whatever. Then they start digging into David's business. Everything is going good. He's making very, very good money. They can't figure out what is happening here. The murder weapons have absolutely no fingerprints on them. They've been wiped totally clean. The only evidence they have at the crime scene was there was a faint footprint at the back door. That's it. He has a rock solid alibi. He checked into a hotel in Madison. They can't get him on that. They strongly suspect him of committing the crime. Even in the newspaper print articles, some of the reporters were struck as, it's kind of odd that this guy is so calm about it. Almost like he's relieved, if you will. So even though detectives really don't have much circumstantial evidence, it bothers them so much that this guy is just totally blasé about his family being murdered. Couple that with the fact that this is a church-going family who have no known enemies. They went ahead and filed charges. They arrested David Hendricks on 4 counts of first-degree murder. About 3 weeks after the murders took place, he's taken to jail to await trial. During the trial, you got your jurors, and the prosecutor is laying out their case. There's only one problem. They don't really have much of a case. Now, during the autopsy of the kids and Susan, they were trying to determine when the cause of death could have possibly been. So during the autopsy, they opened up the stomach contents of the children, and Susan, and they notice in the children that there's still undigested pizza in their stomachs. So according to the medical examiner's office, the person who did the autopsy says, okay, they still have pizza in their stomachs. November 4th, 1983, they were at Chuck E. Cheese. They left around 8:15, 8:30. I would guess that maybe they were killed. I'm going to guess maybe about 10:30, maybe 11 o'clock. That would put David at the scene of the crime committing the murders, because Susan came home from her sister's baby shower from Delvin, and they were there talking, according to him, around 10:30, 11 o'clock, and then he left on an overnight drive to Madison, Wisconsin. So you're thinking to yourself, well, you got an open and shut case. Obviously, this guy killed his wife, killed his kids, didn't want to be married anymore. He had lost some weight, according to some neighbors and some friends. Maybe he was doing a little bit too much flirting in his office. He was having models come in to model the back brace. The police had interviewed some of these models. He had made some sexual-based questions to them, asking them like what they liked, so forth and so on, being overly flirty, a little too flirty, and being somewhat sexually just creepish, is from what the models said. And also, you got the pizza in the stomach. Well, they were killed around 10:30 or 11 o'clock, so we got them. Hook, line, and sinker. Only one problem. When you do autopsies, when the medical examiner tries to determine the time of death based on the stomach contents that are in the stomach, there's 7 billion people in the world. We're all different people. Some of us burn fat faster than others. Some of us are skinny. Some of us can run faster. We're all individuals. We're all different people. It's not an exact science. You cannot readily use that in a court of law to say like, oh yeah, he died at 10:30. Well, we don't really know that. It's not like it's a fingerprint where only one person has that fingerprint. Some people are going to digest food faster than others. So they couldn't necessarily, beyond a shadow of a doubt, use that timeline for the murders. Since the prosecutors know that you're going to need more proof than just the supposed time of death based on the autopsy and what was left in their stomachs, the prosecutor immediately brought up their quote-unquote odd religion. In their religion, it was a total and absolute sin to divorce. And also the fact that, hey, if they get a divorce, maybe she's going to take all of his money, half of his money, take the kids, whatever. Maybe he felt trapped. He did lose about 20 pounds. He looked really good. He started working out. He was asking some of the women that would model his back brace, hey, maybe if you're free sometime, we can go out on a date. Oh, what do you like to do for fun? Being just overbearing with the questions in a sexual nature and a sexual tone that was used. So this guy has a quote unquote weird religion. He's shaping up. Maybe he's planning the murders. At the crime scene, there was different patterns of blood splatter on the walls. I honestly don't know how they surmised, but they believe that there were 2 killers involved in this crime. I'm not really sure how that happens, but that's what they said. And you couple that with the fact that just this guy acted so odd about his family being murdered, and he was just almost relieved. But we have no fingerprints. We only have the stomach contents and the timeline that the medical examiner laid out when he was testifying on stand. And it was enough for the jury to convict David Hendricks of his family's murder. He was sentenced to life in prison. The only reason why he wasn't given the death penalty, because at that time, Illinois did have the death penalty, was because, according to the judge, at the sentencing, he said, there's not enough evidence for me to hand down the death penalty to you. And also, the judge had reservations about the guilty verdict because he said in his own words, there's just not an overbearing amount of evidence to prove your guilt. David goes to prison, and for the next 7 years, vehemently denying anything to do with his family's murder. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. He's a millionaire, a multi-millionaire. He's got long money. And he requests for a new trial. Eventually, he's given a new trial. This time, different venue. This time, the model's testimony about being sexually harassed by David is not going to be used. This time, his religion is not going to be brought up. So the new jury, they don't know about the models that he was, quote unquote, sexually harassing. They don't know about his, quote unquote, weird religion. This time around, David found not guilty for the 4 first-degree murder counts of his family. And he walks out of prison 1991, a free man. And this is the neighborhood where the murders occurred. This is a very, very nice neighborhood. Seems like everybody is trying to outdo everybody in terms of how their lawns look like. Very well manicured lawns here. And if you look right over here, the White House in the center of the screen, this is where the murders took place on that terrible night almost 40 years ago. And here we are walking up to the Hendricks family grave. When David was released from prison, they chose, I believe, either not to try him again because either they just did not have enough evidence or possibly double jeopardy involved in that. I was reading a little blurb online. David Hendricks married 4 times. 4th wife. He lives in Florida. And after he got out of prison, he went right back to what he was doing, selling his orthopedic back brace, making lots and lots and lots of money, wrote a book proclaiming his innocence. But I don't know. Rest in peace to the Hendricks family. Unfortunately, the only ones that could tell us who the killer was are no longer able to speak on this earthly plane. God rest their souls. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you think. Do you think David Hendricks killed his family? Maybe do you think it was somebody else? Who knows? None of us were there. Does not look good for his innocence, though, I will tell you that. We all act different. Like I said, when I was explaining about how we are different, all our bodies are different. All of our personalities are different. Some people process grief in different ways, but to be told that not only your wife, but your 3 children have been brutally, brutally, brutally murdered. And for you to say, oh, well, at least they're with the Lord now, it's very striking. leads me to believe that he's possibly knows something, or is possibly not telling us something, not telling us the whole story. At the end of the day, there's only one judge, and he will be the deciding factor on the persons that were guilty of this horrendous crime. I am Lamont at large. I'll catch up with you on the next vlog. Peace out.